Have you noticed what's going on around the world with the mixing of peoples? And I'm going to have to be careful what I say here, but I think it's a topic that needs to be talked about. I think we really need to be able to talk about what is going on in many Western countries at the moment. And again, I'm going to be careful with my language, right? But that's also the main thing. We're not even allowed to talk about this at the moment. And so well, let's play a video so that you get the idea of what I'm going to be saying.
Immigration surge in 2025. This is national suicide in real time. As reported by the Daily Mail, the numbers are out and they're worse than we thought. In the year to April, over 440,000 permanent and long-term migrants arrived in Australia. Let that sink in. Over 440,000 in just 4 months. That's more than 3,600 people every single day. And guess what? Labor's forecast, 335,000 for the entire year. We are getting lied to and played because we've already blown past that number by 100,000. Now, let's compare some numbers. Back in 2015, a decade ago, Australia took in 190,000 people across the whole year. In 2025, we've done more than double that in just 4 months. And now, the question nobody in power wants to answer. Why? Why are Western nations like Australia, Canada and the UK flooding themselves with mass immigration? Is it deliberate? Is this set up? Have we printed so much fake money that we now need endless population growth just to keep our GDP per capita from collapsing? Are we patching over a broken economy with importing people? Is this really about a skills shortage, or is it about hiding a deeper structural failure? I'll let you think about that one. But something about all of this feels like we're being set up and played by our own government, and we're running out of time to wake up and do something about it. What's your thoughts?
Yes. What are your thoughts? Now, this is a touchy topic because of all the trigger words involved. And, this is happening. And my point of view, we're going to watch some videos about what's going on in Europe as well. This is, as he said, Australia, Canada, UK, but it's also all through Europe, sort of the Scandinavian countries, Germany, Netherlands, where I was just in the Netherlands like 3 weeks ago. Definitely happening there. And what it is the mixing of cultures. Let's, put it that way. And, my issue with this is they're bringing people in from countries that aren't as developed, right? They have a lower standard of living and they're putting them into, as we call them, first world nations, nations with a much higher standard of living and with totally different cultures. Now, my first issue with this is why are they spending all the money bringing these people to new countries, putting them up, with housing, giving them money to live, all this kind of stuff, instead of going back and fixing their original countries? Don't we want every country to be a first world nation? Don't we want the standard of living to be good everywhere? Don't we want these countries that these people are coming from to flourish, right? And to grow nice cultures and, communities? Because I think that's a much better idea than bringing them into other countries where that new country now has to support them. And of course, there's a worldwide housing crisis at the moment, and especially here in Australia. And we don't have enough houses, or at least this is, what the government's saying to us. I'm sure that there's a lot of empty houses around, investments and all this kind of stuff, but there's not enough housing available for the general population. Okay, people are finding it hard, and housing prices are through the roof. They're ridiculous, right? And so they're bringing in more people, 3,000 a day to Australia, which is just crazy. And I like cultures. I like all these. I love traveling. I love all these different countries and peoples and cultures, and we're going to lose that if we keep putting everyone into a big melting pot. We're going to end up with a big grey world and no culture. So it's going to kill both sides of the culture, right? The people coming in and the people who are already there. So it's not a good thing for anyone. That's my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. But it does get worse than that. There are actual ramifications that come from this to the people living in the countries where the new people are brought to.
Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion, the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. But let's
And like I said, I was there. I went to Rotterdam, I went to The Hague, went to Amsterdam, and other, smaller towns around. And it's true. Like it's the natives, or the Dutch, right, the Nederlanders, um are pretty much the minority, are pretty much the are pretty much the minority all across the country.
let's look onwards. London, 54% migrants. Again, conclusion, native population outnumbered. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion, native population majorly outnumbered. And other Europeans will of course follow suit soon if they haven't already. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory, it's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent. Dutch national disgrace and dubbed climate pope Frans Timmermans already stated in 2015 that diversity is humanity's destiny and that Europe will be diverse. And of course, by now, I think we all know what they mean with the word diversity. It means less white people, less of you. Imagine this in an Asian or an African country. Imagine their leaders rejoicing in the fact that their people will soon no longer be a majority in their own country. Absolutely unthinkable, unimaginable. So what in the world is wrong with our leaders?
What is wrong with the leaders? Well, they're all bought and sold. They're all members of certain societies. They're all told what to do, right? They're puppets. And, this is obviously all to cause fear, division, economic strife. Basically, it's to destabilize countries. This is what it's all about. And yes, there is, there's a problem with mixing different religious thoughts together, right? Like it's most of the wars ever have been over religious beliefs, and so mixing that in all together is not a good idea in my humble opinion. But it also, like again, it wipes out the diversity, right? Like it just it mingles everything into this grey pot. And I've got nothing against people who follow the Islamic faith. I've traveled through the Balkans, it's like Serbia and Bosnia. They're all Muslim people. So I don't have that. They were great, so no issues there. It's not to do with that. It's got to do with this is going to destabilize all countries. And as she said, this is a one-way movement, right? There's no movement of people from Europe out to Africa, right? Or to the Middle East. And as she said, there is a war on people who have my color skin at the moment. Okay, we're the baddies apparently for everything. We created all the problems. This is the narrative that's being spread and that's being taught in colleges as well. And, clearly that's not the case at all. Most people are good people. It doesn't matter what, color, race, creed, religion, whatever. Most people are good people. But there's always some bad people. But it's got nothing to do with, the color of skin or anything like that. Or, but, Obviously some belief systems, attract certain people, but in general, people are good. So this isn't the problem. It's not about that. It's about destroying culture and diversity and mixing everyone together. And when they do that, we can see all of our economies are being destroyed, right? And we're all having the finger pointed at us, as far as people who look like me, right? So I'd love to, again, it's very hard to sort of talk about this topic because of all the censorship and what we are and are not allowed to say. But I would love to hear your comments on this below. No matter, I'd like to hear from everyone, all different perspectives, people from different places, right? But please be nice. I don't want any fighting down there because this is the thing. This is not a problem between men and women. This is the elites, right? The control system against us, as it always has been and as it is in every single circumstance. It's never your neighbor, it's never the people down the street, it's the controllers that are controlling this and creating all this tension and fear and strife and which leads to violence, right? But it's all planned. Okay, so the best thing we can do is not bite.
Million immigrants in 5 years is going to increase demand on the medical system. What about the fact that people my age can't get any housing, we can't get rentals anymore, we have no future in this country anymore? Do you think that's kind of ridiculous? No?
Things got heated on the campaign trail as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was heckled during his first press conference. A young man confronted him about Australia's housing crisis, linking it to immigration.
Everyone my age is stressed out. We're so terrified the next 5 to 10 years. You understand that? Because we don't have any place to go. This is our land. This is our country. You understand that? And those people in there are robbing us of our future.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was a young person too, right? This is how people are feeling because it's now directly affecting people. So let's have a look what people are saying about this. So, worst PM, Prime Minister in Australia's history, of course. If a migrant can build his career here, coming from a totally different background, why can't you? I have no idea what that means. Um, but I don't think anyone's, opposed to people, small numbers, of course, it's the mass thing that's a big problem. But if people come and they want to assimilate into the culture and work hard and build a life, that's not a problem. It's when people bring their cultures and they stay in their own little things and they want to then start bringing their own laws in and basically start changing the culture and act differently to the standards of the country that they've gone into. So this guy is saying, yeah, blaming immigrants for housing prices is lazy. The real drivers behind Australia's housing crisis are negative gearing, capital gains, tax discounts, land banking, and a system that rewards investors. And that's true. That's true to a point, but he hasn't got the whole picture anyway. He still thinks that the government are there to help the people, right? Well, they're not. They're here to create division. They're here to steal our wealth, our commonwealth. In Australia, we're the Commonwealth of Australia, but they've stolen all the commonwealth. Um, but all the governments are connected, guys. They're all connected. There's no, presidents and prime ministers are selected, not elected. It says our land, proud of this young man. Now this one, we get this a lot in Australia, and so do most countries. With their original populations. It's his country, but it's not his land. It's Aboriginal land. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if you're born in a country, then you're a native of it. So it is your land. It's time to share. Like, I'm from convicts. Okay, I'm a seventh generation Australian, and my ancestors were convicts brought over here as convicts. So, we didn't move here or immigrate here. We just sort of cast here and locked up, right? Um, so, why should I or my children have any less rights than anyone who was born here? Like, I don't get that at all. And I know lots of elders, and I talk to them, about these types of things. And, most of the real, the real um, originals, the ones who aren't, paid off by government and government jobs and all this kind of stuff, they agree, right? That they're not trying to kick us all out. They're trying to come together, right? So that as one people. And that's what we should be doing everywhere. But this mass immigration is doing the opposite. It's splitting people up. It's causing division. We've been sold out. Same thing is happening in Canada. He's been paid off. Look at the guilty look on his face. 100% correct. Canada has the same problem. You think Australia is bad, try living in Britain. Same in Canada. Canada is like, okay, so Canada, and I've heard a bit about Canada. Looks like it's, probably a bit ahead of us. Same with the UK. So if you're from Canada or the UK, please tell me your thoughts. I would like to hear what's going on. Here's one Facebook mum. I'm a 20-year-old competing with 30 to 50-year-old immigrants when it comes to rentals. And this is it. That's wrong. Everyone in the country should be looked after first before anyone else is brought in. Anything else is just complete madness. Canada as well. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So here's another one. Your land. Aren't you talking about England and Europe? Well, no, because I don't know. I didn't get to Europe till I was like 48 or something. I've never been there because I've been here, my family's been here 7 generations. So this is, I don't agree with this because someone was there before you, it's their country. Because if we add that logic, then it means all this immigrant stuff, we could turn around and say the same thing, right? But they're not. They're trying to defend it by saying, but it's not your country. I mean, you know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. The Joe Biden of Australia, vote one nation and change the balance of power. I mean, no, governments are never going to change anything, and they're not going to let a leader in that's actually going to try and create change. It's just not going to happen. And yes, I know I'm going to get a lot of Trump comments for saying that, right? But in my experience, I've never seen it. I hope I do, right? I'm not completely judging anyone as good or bad, but the system that they're all in is definitely bad and against us. He doesn't care. That's scary. Um, More need to speak up like this, and I'd agree with that. So a few comments. Like I said, I'm really doing this, just sort of touching on it because it's a touchy subject. But I'd love to know your comments, and please, share this video around, so that I can, we can get a broad view of what people are actually thinking. Because this is the problem with all this, wokeism and censorship and things that you can say and you can't say. It stops discussions, which means it stops us solving problems. And all this stuff is against us. And when I say us, I mean the men and women of the world, like all of us, right? These elites, these beings in control that aren't us. It's them against us. This is an invasion, guys. Um, and if we can't talk and we don't talk, well, how are we ever going to fix it? This is the problem. So please leave me your comments. And of course, give me a like, subscribe if you like this kind of content. And yeah, because you'll find other videos like this as well. And I really want to get into some of these topics, but there's only so far we can go in this censored world we live in, right? But there are real problems, and I'm not really going to get into them deeply. You all know what they are, what's going on. It won't take much research to find out the problems that have been caused, with crime and violence and, all that kind of stuff, right? Essays as well. In fact, Sweden is now the essay capital of the world, right? And their population is now over 50% immigrants. So we're just going to have a quick look at one more clip, just from, a lady's perspective. And, like I said, this is going on. This is the bad side that is really not spoken enough of and is so censored. The societal problems that come with mixing cultures and belief systems.
I genuinely don't feel safe in Australia. Now, the government is allowing mass numbers of immigrants from third world and developing countries into Australia. And unfortunately, white women and kids are paying the price for it. So many women are getting assaulted and harassed by these men that are coming over here. And these men get away with absolutely everything. Because in their countries, women don't have rights. And they do not treat women good at all. Yet we're letting these people in and expecting them to adapt to our way of life and assimilate. And it's just not happening, and we can see that. And we can clearly see that. Like, these people are going around stabbing people, attacking women, raping women and kids, literally everything under the sun. Yet these people aren't getting kicked out. They're literally allowed out on bail the next day. Like, honestly, what the fuck is happening? Especially with some of the crimes, I'm like, how the hell is this dude allowed out the next day? Like, you've got to be kidding me.
All right, so that's kind of as far as I can probably get into that, but but it is true, right? That these people aren't being charged or jailed, and we saw this happening in England. About 6 months ago, they were actually letting prisoners out, like with quite bad offences, so to make room to put basically the English people in there, right? Make room for the English people, their own people, for committing crimes, or so-called crimes, right? Crimes like posting on Facebook. Those criminals, the cyber criminals, they were putting in jail, right? If they were talking out against the movement of people. Okay, so I mean, so you just got to look at it. It's clearly an agenda. It's happening, and we can't say anything about it. We can't talk about it. We can't say no, or else we're this. We get all these labels put on us. And every time we do speak up, it's, if you have my color skin, then it's suddenly that, supreme pizzas, right? White supreme pizzas. This is what they're trying to tell us. Even though in Australia, most, white supreme pizzas can't get housing. That they're living week to week. They're only just making it. So it's all a lie. It's not true. And then what's happening is these uh, people that are being moved about are ending up with a better standard of living than the people who've built this country, right? Who have been here working and building it over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, which is, it's just not right. It's just not right. That's just my opinion. Should we be helping these people? Of course, but like I said, we should be helping them to rebuild their countries into the kind of countries that they don't want to leave. Every country should be a first world country. I mean, we shouldn't really have countries when you want to get down to it, but that's another topic. But yeah, this should be to help everyone, right? And all this is doing is dividing everyone and causing problems. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that one. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, because we need to start talking about these topics, and I would love to know your opinions. All right. Thanks for spending some time with me. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.